Do you have the day one quizzes?
She said she was printing them out. That was at like 10. So, but we talked about not holding them up for just letting them take it home.
Well, yeah, I recommended that last time. I don't need to stare at somebody while they do a quiz. And we're in Portsmouth, where it's already a pain in the ass once traffic hits after 3:15.
Guys.
There's Tess from Blackman.
Sweet.
You guys?
Perfect.
Yeah.
You must have.
I will say about these quizzes too. I had to find out last cycle. If you question the accuracy in some of those questions, please bring it up to me, and I will give you guys the right answer. Because I know last time some of the questions were inaccurate, and I had to provide some clarification. So please help me be a QA on these questions when you go. Are you here tomorrow too? Are you here tomorrow too?
No, tomorrow I have an MRI. I start back on.
Is it Nally tomorrow?
2nd.
Oh, it's not gonna be Nally tomorrow.
It's McFarland.
Oh, that guy. Okay. I do. He's in my little group of first classes making chief. Trying to make chief.
So we'll start. You said 14:40, right? Well, good afternoon. It seems like you guys want to sleep. Is it that time of the day already? Alright, you guys almost done? Am I the last one?
You are the last topic.
Hey, guess what? I'm the last one, so it means you guys gonna remember what I teach, alright? Because I'm the last one, right? Anyway, so I'm Chief Menard, work at General Surgery. I'll be in the Navy for almost 19 years, and I'm all over the place. I enlisted in Guam, came back to Guam, went to Camp Lejeune, then after that Texas, A school instructor, then went to ship, and then I went here, clinic first and then here. So in Camp Lejeune, I've been in and out in terms of green side and blue side. So that's where I put 5 years in Camp Lejeune. So if you want to know about Camp Lejeune, let me know.
It's not a bad area that people think it is.
It
I like
depends on the
Lejeune.
person. The area you go into, it really depends on the person. Everywhere you go, it's not the command that sucks. It really depends on you and how you grade it, right? Depends on you. You gotta make it suck if you want it to be suck. If you want it to be fun, it's up to you, right? Anyway, so today we're gonna talk about. Oh, still I have to be close because.
Yes.
Sorry, I like to walk around, but I have to be close to do this this web thing. Anyway, so I'm not here to teach you guys to be a subject matter expert in regulatory medical waste, right? I'm not here for you to guys in 20 minutes for you to be like, hey, I know what's regulated medical waste, and I know all these terms, I know how to dispose it, and I know everything. I'm here to at least guide you or give you some pointers of how you're gonna understand or pretty much memorize this 20-page instruction so that you can answer this question once it pop up on your test, right? That is the main goal. Anyway, we'll start. They have a slide, so they're gonna follow along with the slide, but I like going into old school to the instruction itself. Now, with you guys, the first thing you guys need to memorize in this instruction is the instruction number itself. So, what governs management of regular medical waste? Anybody? Take a chance.
6280.1.
Alright.
Now, what type of instruction?
1 term. We gotta remember what instruction. UMID instruction. So when you're looking at instruction, you have to memorize the whole thing. Now, if you don't, here's we go with the guessing type, right? You have 4 choices. You have 24 chances to guess the right, 25% to guess the right thing. So you guys gotta know the trick. So when you're looking at what actually it targets, right? Regular medical management of regular waste, medical. So who's in charge of medical? BUMED. So it's a BUMED instruction, right? We're talking about like overseas screening. Overseas screening is for what? We do that so that you become operational. So guess what? Who's in charge of operational? OPNAV, right? So those can stop. So think about what is the target if you forget what it is. Because they're probably going to ask you in the test, they're going to give you the number, but they're going to give you on the choices is Bumed instruction, OPNAV instruction, SecNav instruction, right? Look at what is that instruction is targeted. Then you will get to that portion. Or they're going to give you the same number, different instruction, or same instruction, different number. So make sure you guys know both. Bumed instruction 6280.1 Charlie. That's the new one. With this instruction, the one thing that got added is about 2. They add the job of the dental, the tooth fairies in here for some reason. Anyway, let's move on. So Bumed instruction 6280.1 Charlie is pretty much governs management of regular medical waste. This instruction applies to all Bumed BSO 18 facilities that generate regular medical waste. So BSO 18. Remember that. It also applies to Army vet facilities aboard Navy shore base. So if you go to, there's like Army, because the Army is the only ones that have veterans in there. So if you have a naval base that have a vet in there, Guam, they have it in there. So they're subject on this instruction.
What is BSO 18, by the way? Does anybody know what activities they're talking about? So BSO 18, or anybody's going to fall under that Bumed umbrella. So that's going to be, who falls under Bumed? What are those 3 regions? You got your NMFA, NMFL, and your training one, right? So those are BSO 18 type activities, right? Which is different going to be from your shipboard, right? That's why I know she's going to say it, but the afloat medical waste management guide is the one you're going to be using for ships because they're not a BSO 18 activity. They fall under different guidelines.
You go into shore, Navy shore. BSO 18 is mostly in your hospital, MTS. Naval Hospital Portsmouth is part of BSO 18. So remember that. Now, what's the definition of non-regular medical waste? Non-regulated medical waste. What are those?
Just like anything else that's not hazardous.
Not hazardous. Those are your trash. They said it's not regulated. You don't have to regulate it. There's nothing happens when you throw it. A piece of gum, even though it comes to your mouth and you have your saliva, there's nothing gonna happen if you throw it regular trash, right? Majority of what's got asked over there is the example. So when you go in there, bandages containing very small amount of blood or added body fluids is considered trash. Since considered trash, they're non-RMW. So disposable catheters, swabs, disposable drapes, gum, masks, MTU, specimen container, and urine cups. The worst is the minimal body fluids in there. So anything that you can throw on the trash, right? So that's not your non-regulated medical waste. Now, your RMW, what are those?
There's a 2-word phrase you're looking for to know about RMW compared to non-regular medical waste. It's called blood-soaked, right? So you see trace amount of blood, but if something is blood-soaked, it's falling into the category that Chief is mentioning.
So when you've been soaked, it's like, probably they're going to give you an example. If you're in labor and delivery, somebody have a pad, like a regular sanitary pad, a minimal amount, trash. If it's soaked in blood, because it happens, labor and delivery, right? You can throw it as a regular medical waste. Tracking? Tracking. Moving along. So you guys got to memorize the 9 groups. Those 9 groups is already the 9 question, a possible 9 questions. So what's group 1? So you got your culture stocks and vaccines. Group 2. Pathological waste. Group 3 is your blood and blood products. Group 4 is sharp. So far, 4 and 7 is the same. 4 is used and 7 is unused. Then 5 is your animal waste. Group 6 is isolation waste. Group 8 is other, and then group 9 is chemotherapy trace waste.
I got a ditty for you guys on this real quick. Alright, this is what I want you to write down.
All right. Children play basketball using Allen Iverson moves under other children. Okay? And pay attention to the U words I'm using, right? Children play basketball using, so you see US for use sharps, Allen Iverson moves under, keywords un for unused sharps, other children. Everybody got the ditty?
Say one more time, please.
Children play basketball using Allen Iverson moves under other children. I was going to say and one, but not everybody knows what and one is. So Allen Iverson moves under other children.
Most of the time in the test is the group 6. It says bedding from patient or animal from bait, biosafety level 4, BSL 4 agents. Considered as your isolation waste. Now, let's talk about animal waste. Animal waste is infectious animals, contaminated animal carcasses, body parts, and bedding of animals known to have been exposed to infectious agent during treatment, research, production of biological or testing or pharmaceutical. So you went to Thailand, you got bitten by a monkey, you brought the monkey to the ship, and then that monkey died. That monkey become animal waste. Right? Example. You guys gotta know what a BSL stands for. BSL is there are 4 levels. In regards to RMW, you guys gotta remember what is level 4. Level 4 belongs to what group? Oh, you're going for the slide?
They don't pair up.
It's on its definition. We're on animal waste. Go back. So after that. So this one, there's no word about animal waste. Next to that is a BSL 4. So when you talk about BSL 4 or biosafety level 4, think about a group 6. Group 6 is your isolation waste. Now, blood and blood products, they're your free-flowing liquid, human blood, plasma, serum, and other blood derivatives, right? Now, we talk about cultures and stocks. Those are your medical, usually comes out from the lab, your pathological laboratories, right? Now, dual waste. Dual waste, if you consider those wastes as also regulated and can be hazardous. They contain both. That's why it says dual. Now, when you talk about hazardous waste, hazardous itself, it can be really, really harmful. It can cost life.
So,
That's what it is.
so a good example for y'all to know, because it's going to come up again. For dental, if you have an extracted tooth and it has amalgam in it, it is considered a dual waste. And what happens is you're going to go for the more stringent regulation that you're going with, or what's going to be the most hazardous to the individual. In this case, it would be mercury. So this dual waste would be discarded as a amalgam waste compared to a regulated medical waste because of the tooth, if that makes sense.
Amalgam is considered as hazardous because it's metal.
Well, it's mercury, which is obviously deadly.
Yeah, think about it. Amalgam, hazardous, and then you have the tooth, which is usually came out of your mouth, right? So they're both. Now let's talk about roles and responsibility. So Bumed, Chief of Bumed, is the one formulate and disseminate the Navy medicine policy guidance related to the management of RMW. So this is Chief of Bumed is very much the person who's in charge of this instruction, right? Then you have your commanders, Navy Medicine Echelon 3 activities. Now they're the ones to ensure that Echelon 3 EPM or Environmental Program Manager has been appointed. Now this is gonna go down to your COs. COs are the ones who support compliance with this regulation. They're the ones very much gonna get affected. They're the ones who follows this, right? And then they have to ensure that an EPM has been appointed to each command So you have to have your environmental program manager, which controls very much, follows this, like they're like the SME of this instruction.
So to make it make sense, right, since she mentioned some words that you're reading through the instruction, she said echelon 3 appoints environmental protection manager. So who's your echelon 3? You guys remember from the first lesson? Your echelon 3 are going to be your regions.
Who's our boss? The boss of our boss.
So NMFA would be our region, right? They're responsible for appointing an environmental protection manager, right? So when they do that, then your echelon 4 commands like Portsmouth will have an EPOC, environmental point of contact, which is the one that's going to coordinate with the protection manager. So then the CO would appoint an EPOC, or usually an officer, that would communicate that in between your EPM up at NMFA. Does that make sense?
Now your EPM is your subject matter expert of this one. The main thing is once they assume the duties, once they get their appointment letters, they're supposed to have their training within 1 year of appointment. So remember, training, 1 year appointment for EPM. Now for your EPOC, which is your environment point of contact, they have to have a training within 1 year appointment, and they have to maintain appropriate training thereafter, so they have to have a refresher every year. So 1 year, as soon as 1 year within that, their appointment, and then refresher every year. It's only good for a year.
And why do you think that is? What did I mention about the 2 workshops every year? Why do they do that?
Updated guidelines.
Yes. So that's exactly why they have to have refresher training every year, because there's always going to be updated guidelines with safety at each command.
Every instruction has to be reviewed every year. Every year. That's any instruction at all. Has to be reviewed every year. So think just like that. Now, when we're talking about action, like within the facility on non-sharp regular management waste, regulated medical waste, you have to have a mark of biohazard, a big biohazard, and it has to be red in color. Those are your universal line. Now, containers used for the collection of non-sharp RMW must be lined with plastic RMWs that are marked and certified by the manufacturer, and has to be met the 165 gram impact strength American Society for Testing of Materials. Now, in case that you guys don't have that, you can have a red or orange bag, but you still have to have the universal mark of biohazard in there. Most of the time when you go to like a ship, you go operational, you can't really find those like really specific ones, especially the thicker ones. You only see the orange, which is really thin. So sometimes you just have to double bag it.
So I want you guys to think of this as like a Glad trash bag, right? Every trash bag is not created equal. If you have trash bags where you have a lot of weight in there, if you're the shittier trash bags, what's going to happen with that bag? It's going to rip open, right? That's your impact strength, right? Now, you might have something that can carry a lot, but when it starts having like hangers and other pointy material in there, it could puncture through the bag, right? So what it's saying is it's going to have to have tear strength, so it's not going to rip through the bag. So impact strength is how heavy you can have that bag, and your tear strength is how durable that material is, so nothing is ripping in between it. Does that make sense? So 165 gram impact, 480 gram tear strength.
Now, when you're talking about collection and segregation, for group 2 with your pathological, this is your body parts, right? So make sure you double bag it in compliance with RMW bags. So you have to double bag it because the main thing you don't want to cause spillage. Now, let's say we don't have a bag. We're like somewhere in Afghanistan whatsoever. It's hard to like actually like to dispose them. The alternate ways to dispose them are cremation or burial by licensed mortician. So it's not just you, the ones that are gonna decide that we're gonna bury them, but it has to be a licensed mortician. Now, with that pathological one, usually within 24 hours, it's like subject to pretty much dispose, right? Now, if you cannot dispose them, means you cannot throw them away, take it out of the facility within 24 hours, you have to froze them. It has to be frozen.
And kept for how many days if frozen? Does anybody know? It's 30 days. Your 7 days is going to fall under another thing, so don't get that confused. Right now she's talking about pathological waste. The 7 days is going to fall under another thing for your regulated medical waste.
So, pathological, your body parts cannot maintain 24 hours, frozen it, and it's good for 30 days. Now, when you're talking about extracted teeth, this is where we're going to go for earlier what he's talking about. If extracted teeth with amalgam is considered as dual waste, it means it's also regulated and it's also hazardous. So you have to dispose them accordingly. Now, if it's just the teeth itself, you just comply with the RMW regulation.
And remember, extracted teeth are not a pathological waste. That's the one they're going to throw on the test for you. Just because it isn't a bone or whatever else, it is considered just a hazard or a hazardous waste.
Now, same thing, if you have a syringe that contain like partial use and is eligible for reverse distribution, for example, like chemicals in the syringe that can be hazardous once it get exposed, it's going to be considered as dual waste, the syringe. And then for that, you have to go to your EPM for disposal guidance to those dual waste. Now, when you're talking about isolation waste, anything that's like have a BSL-4 in the level 4 means it's really high, right? Isolation. You have to consult your facility infection control because it means that you cannot just throw it away. Anything that's come out from the isolation, remember, like COVID, we isolate that patient for a reason, right? Anything that come out from the isolation room, it can be considered as group 6 because they need a high level of disinfection. So you have to control your infection control to dispose those. Because there's certain way, are we just gonna throw them, steam them away, how are we gonna bag it, and how you gonna handle it.
Because it could be contagious. That's the biggest thing on why you have to consult infection control. You don't want to dispose of something where you burn it, and now you create aerosols of that contagion to where now somebody else can contract whatever was burned in that pile.
Now, what's group 8? Anybody what's group 8 is? If you don't remember, because it's other. There's no classification. It's the other. Anything that beyond your 7 group is going to consider group 8. It's other. So the main thing is you have to understand what considers as other aside from it doesn't classify with the other 7, right? So this includes fluids that are designated as RMW by the local IC authority. Example is your semen, vaginal secretions, cerebrospinal fluid, synovial fluid, your pleural fluid, peritoneal fluid, pericardial fluid, and amniotic fluid. So those are considered as your others. You might think it's semen, it's like blood and blood products. It's considered others. Okay. Now, when we talk about chemotherapy trays, waste, what kind of container, what color of container we have to put our chemotherapy one? Yellow. So yellow. So all our biohazard has to be red. The alternative is red and yellow bag. If it's a chemotherapy, it has to be yellow. Now we're talking about pathological. If we cannot able to dispose it within 24 hours, we have to froze it for how long? 30 days. Now when you talk about non-pathological, and if you are able to dispose them within 24 hours, it's good for 7 days. So for up to 7 days calendar, that is your non-pathological RMW. They cannot be, they may be placed unrefrigerated in final storage, but it's only good for 7 days. Tracking so far?
Unless it starts stinking.
That's it. Now, when you're talking about your RMW storage, the signage, you have to have a biohazard signage in there, and then it has to be the distance. The signage must be legible from a distance of at least 5 feet. So it means about the same size as me. If I lay down, because I'm at 5 feet, if I lay down, that's how far. When you stand where my feet at, the head has to be where the biohazard is. That's how long it is. Somebody has able to read it within 5 feet. Now, steam sterilization. This is coming out for a different instruction too, and it's always coming out to your exam. In steam sterilization, in the absence of manufacturer recommendation, steam sterilization requires temperature of at least 120 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Fahrenheit for at least 90 minutes at 15 pounds per square inch or gauge pressure. Verbatim, you have to memorize that. This always comes out on the test. Then, or Geobacillus stereothermophilus spore strip must be used weekly to test the sterilization process. I mean, if they fail, then they have to do something. They have to use that strip to make sure it's actually illegal, that actually it's doing what it's supposed to do.
So an easy way to remember this is the minimum temperature for sterilization to occur is 250 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we go over chapter 10 of the core manual, you'll see all the different temperatures, but 250 is your baseline for sterilization to start occurring. So some will run at 274, some will run at 320, but you will always have that minimum 250.
This is to kill everything in order for it to be safe to throw it away or incinerate it. Now, when you're talking about training, all employees at the beginning of works into their training, and they have to have annual refresher in regards to RMW. Now, in terms of employees responsible for packing the RMW, if they're off-site, they have to have training as soon as possible, but no longer than 90 days. So we're talking about the people that packing your RMW. If they're off-site, it means not within our command or not in the hospital. They're outside, right? So within 90 days, and of course a refresher or 24 months for 2 years. So their certification or their training is only good for 24 months.
So a lot of times we do that, and I'm pretty sure every command pretty much still does this. Have you ever heard of Stericycle, whatever else? They have civilians that work out in an off-site area that come and pick up our hazardous waste each week, to where they're the ones that have to have that training, whatever contract company they're through, and then they have to follow those procedures, along with the other rule that she's about to hit with the documentation.
Now, if it's Oconus, somewhere overseas, right, we always follow a local policy. So whatever the local or that state or that country is policies in regards to training of the worker that's like regulating or packing the waste, they have to follow it. So it's based on the host company. And then if there's nothing or nothing there's nothing is available, you can find it, then you just have to approach your Echelon 3 activity EPM, which is your environmental program manager, because they're the one that SME you to it. So if you can't find it, you're having a hard time to find it, if you're a CONUS, get with them, and then they will give you the instructions.
That also applies to CONUS if the local area has something that's more stringent than what you're currently doing. Sometimes they have more policies that are more stringent than what we have Navy-wise. Because we fall in that area, we sometimes have to follow their guidelines. A big one is amalgam waste that I've seen where they have more stringent policies on it.
So now we're talking about documentation, right? So each place where you go to, each hospital, each facility you go to, they're supposed to have a plan on how to regulate their waste and how to dispose it. Now, those plans has to be reviewed annually, and any modification to the plan must be made within 90 days of annual review. Now, in terms of training records, so you gotta keep your training records at least 3 years. Now, RMW shipping document and manifest at least 2 years. So training is 3, manifest and shipping is 2. And then when you're talking off-site, it's also 2 years. Tracking? And then there's this added portion of there, is something to do with the tooth. It's the extraction tooth decision 3. Just make sure you look into that algorithm. This is the new thing that's added on this instruction. The algorithm is the last piece of it. It's how to pretty much throw away your teeth. If the patient wants it, how are you going to give it to the patient? Some people want to keep safe their teeth, right? Or if they want it for the study, because they can use it for study, how are you going to dispose of it? And of course, if the tooth has amalgam, it's considered as what? Dual waste. So
That's an easy way to remember that it's not a pathological waste too, because dentists can give that tooth back to the individual. If it was that contagious, they'd be thrown away right there. But because it's not pathological, they're able to rinse it off, disinfect it, whatever else, and then give it back to the patient if they want to keep it as a memento. It's weird, but they do allow that.
or sometimes they will give that to as a study, something special for that patient. They give it to like research and study. So how they're gonna dispose it. So just look at the algorithm. This is something new on that instruction. Questions so far? Nope. Definitely memorize the 9 regulated medical wastes. Remember, and then don't forget BSL 4.
So the 60 days too for documentation, just to help you guys understand. So like I said, you have an off-site facility for like Stericycle or whatever else. So they'll receive it and then dispose of it on whatever way they have in their facility. They have to give you a piece of paper saying this is what I received from you and this is what was done with it. So based on how long it takes for them to process all that, as long as it's done with before that 60-day mark, they have to get that paperwork back to you. So when you get audited, you have proper documentation of everything that's ever left your facility, showing that it was disposed of by environmental health.
Any question, concern?